I became incredibly engaged in a way that I never had been before with the news when the referendum happened,
Right.
really.
Yeah, like a lot of people then. I feel
Yeah,
like,
like so many people. And I was engaged politically a bit before, but I think that now it all feels like it matters so much more. So I'm old enough to remember um, when Tony Blair got in, and okay, obviously we didn't know the Iraq War was going to happen, but at the time it was incredible living in Britain then as a young person.
yeah,
It was amazing. It really was. The front of GQ was Cool Britannia, and it had Liam Gallagher and Kate Moss in bed with a big Union Jack, but not in a sort of Robert Jenrick waving a
yeah,
nationalistic. It was all very cool. It was Blur versus Oasis. It was house music. It was DJing. It was just like this explosion of amazing stuff. The Brits was always really cool. The Spice Girls were sort of huge globally,
yeah. Guy
and
Ritchie
we
movies.
still
Yeah,
didn't have social media and stuff, and it just felt like there was a massive sense of togetherness. And that was sort of whenever it was, late 90s. And then even when Cameron got in, it was like, okay, but it didn't feel really worrying or dangerous
yeah,
or terrifying. Or really, they were, these sort of politicians, you were like, well, I could be Labour or someone else could be Conservative, and you could go for a drink. That's absolutely fine. You're
yeah,
not that far apart. Of course, there's always going to be extremes, but not like there is now.
yeah.
Um,
There wasn't the
and
same
the
division
landscape's
and
just
tribalism.
no,
Mm.
no.
So I want to go back to what you were saying before about getting engaged in politics around that 2016 kind of time, because that was, from an outsider's perspective, and remember, I don't work in the media. It seemed like it was around 2013 to 2016 that journalism sort of broke off and went into the bad timeline. And I think maybe when we start to get near to the referendum, that was the first time when I started thinking, do you remember, like, back in the 80s and early 90s, there would always be these people on the news saying, like, we need to find a way to get people more engaged in politics. Like, it was famously boring and they wanted to get people more engaged. But it was after 2016 when I was like, we need to find a way to get people less engaged in politics. And
Yeah.
and that was the sort of genesis of the whole, like, the fake news stuff and anti-vax and like Hillary's Pizzagate. And I think like the Mail and the Guardian had always been, polar opposites, but I think since then, previous newspapers of record like the Telegraph have, pivoted and moved more aggressively into this kind of,
Oh,
in my,
Telegram
yeah,
gone
in
very
my opinion,
strange.
they've
You
gone
know,
into a right
yeah.
wing
I mean,
fantasy
I
land.
put
But
a lot of this back to Murdoch,
mm,
and famously, he's always decided who's going to be in power next.
yeah,
And Tony Blair famously cozied up to him and was really, really derided within the Labour Party for doing so and for going on his yacht and doing all of that stuff that him and Alistair Campbell did. But he was like, do you want Labour to be in power or not? And he decided that Brexit was going to happen, and I think Russia decided that Brexit was going to happen, and lots of rich disaster capitalists decided that Brexit should happen, and loads of people in this country decided that Brexit should happen. But I think that austerity, this
mm,
goes right back to the financial crash as far as I'm concerned. And I just think when you've had a huge crash, if you don't stimulate the economy
mm,
and you cut and cut and cut and cut, which is what the Tories done. I mean, I never forget Theresa May when she was at the Home Office going against everything that the police advised, cutting 10,000 police officers. It was like, okay. And that was really, I remember, really scary, thinking, why? It's so short-sighted. It's always seemed so short-sighted to me, because why are you saving there? You taking away the resources that keep us safe and that keep, like, crime looked into. And they all said, if you do that, we won't manage this. And it's all happened. They cut all the youth centres.
mm.
They cut all the resources. They've cut all the mental health resources. So you've had crime went up, people had nowhere to go, people with mental health issues roaming the streets, etc. And you do that long enough and you cut schools and all the things that make our society amazing, and the NHS and everything. And then you get people that can't afford to live near their place of work. And especially up north, you just see no investment, no infrastructure. And it gets worse and worse and worse and worse. And then the press, instead of blaming the government, blame migrants and, let's blame Europeans.
Yeah.
And this is where it's so sad, because I remember in the Cool Britannia days, it felt like, wow, I'm lucky to live in Britain, because if I go out and get run over or something happens to me, we all get free healthcare at point of access. Then we've got the BBC. And now that's become such a thing. The BBC is like globally envied as being this incredible state broadcaster. People go on and on and on about Question Time. Look at CBeebies, look at all the radio, look at the drama that gets exported around the world, like The Serpent, look at the cricket, look at the tennis, look at the, all the stuff that they do. So the BBC, the NHS, then we're in bed with America with this special relationship. And then, not only that, we've got all our neighbours there, it's massive trade block. And free trade. And you've got freedom of movement, and you can all go over there. And then we're in London and it's super cool. And there's loads of investment here so that they can all have a gateway into Europe.
Yeah.
What has happened?